I have over 500 subscribers, and if I get up to 1,000, then I get monetized again. And from what I hear, it's 20 to 30 bucks a month. Good amount of money I can put towards the car. Might help me get motivated to keep making videos like this. So please hit that subscribe button. That really helps me out a lot. Thanks. And also, I'm willing to answer any questions you've got. Throw it at me in the comments or on Facebook or anything. Any way you can figure out how to reach me. So this is the stock coil pack bracket mount. But it's cut right here where there would normally be an engine mount for the GTP, but you can see it right there. Now the coil packs will no longer sit on top there. I don't think there's enough room between that and the firewall and the car. But you can see here where I cut it to make room. I would install this heater hose, which I have the link in the description. Sorry, radiator hose. First, because once you get the engine in the car, it's very, very difficult to reach that area with all the pulleys and stuff installed. So I changed the fuel filter on both sides. This is the fitting's a 16, and then the fuel filter has a 20. And I soaked it in penetrating oil a couple days prior, several times before I got it in. And there's the old one. It will be full of gas, so be careful. There are 1, 2, and there's one on the bottom. 10mm screws holding it in. I'd take those off so you can slide it out. If you run out of boost because your pulley size can't go any smaller, you can actually get an overdrive balancer that is thicker around on the supercharger part. That being thicker would make this spin faster as well. Though I've only seen a 5% overdrive one, maybe they sell bigger ones, but it'd be hard to do that because the oil filter housing is pretty close there. But I don't know, maybe it'd fit. There's also a lot of different oil filter housings available off of different cars. You can see that stuff on gmtuners.com. So flywheel bolts take 11 foot-pounds of torque and plus 50 degrees. These do yield, so get new ones. You're going to want to clock the flywheel because it actually is drilled only one way to fit on. And then when you torque on these bolts, put a big wrench on the other side and hold that while you're torquing them. I've also got a coolant shutoff valve because the way that the heater works in cars is that's the heater hose there, right? And it returns, actually returns into that hose. So the heater hose constantly is cycling hot coolant through your car's hoses and into your heater core. And in the summertime, that can actually heat up the interior of your car a little bit. So FieroAustin actually recommended this. He puts a valve on that hose so he can shut that valve off when he doesn't want heat in the summertime. As you see, I decided to fab a bracket like Lost Not Forgotten did instead of tap that dang hole because I didn't want to screw that up. So I just used that bolt hole there, a piece of steel, and another bolt threaded through with a nut actually on the other side to catch it. And then that bolt just screws and literally holds that in. So take a new gasket or a seal for your temp sensor, put it on there, there's a groove in there, and that just pops right in there. Coolant temperature sensor goes here. Careful with this because you're threading brass into aluminum. 3/4 inch wrench works good on this. And it gets 16 foot-pounds of torque. Lost Not Forgotten has how to put this AC bracket back on with FieroAustin's mount, but in short, that upper bolt there gets 36 foot-pounds. I just actually stripped these nuts because this there's studs coming out of this aluminum bracket, and I stripped that hole. I don't think that's 74. I think that's lower. The guide might have been lying to me. I'm not sure. So I wouldn't go above maybe, I don't know, 35. There's a rear bracket as well. Those two bolts get 23 foot-pounds. Your plugs get 15 foot-pounds of torque. So if you have this alternator, you need to get a different one if you have Fiero Rogers brackets. This alternator here came with my 98 GTP. It has these mounting holes on it like so. Rogers bracket is designed for an alternator with one of them mounting holes on the side, but then these other ones that are on this side, actually two of them. There's one down there too. This comes on I got this one off of a 2001 Bonneville. I think it also comes on a 2001 and later GTP as well. So be careful about that. I got a GTP one for like 73 bucks. I decided to fab a heat shield for the alternator because on these alternators, sometimes if they get a little hot, they stop putting out as much power. So I use that bolt hole, same as the transmission mount bolt hole. I got just one bend, and you have to cut out a little notch to get the spark plug boot room. And then just bent over here too. I actually cut this out of my old exhaust shield, which I will no longer be using. And that is because I cut my bottom portion of the trunk out, and I'm going to be welding up that hole at some point. The reason for that is so I can fit these new Chinese exhaust headers in where the trunk would normally go. These are $200 Chinese exhaust headers for a GTP. Just literally searched on eBay GTP exhaust and these guys popped up. So you might want headers because the stock exhaust only supports up to about 300 horsepower with your blower in there, which is not going to cut it for me. Can't flow enough air. So I'm cutting off my EGR off of the headers. I'm going to have to cut this off and weld it. So this guy came with two gaskets. So this is the wrong side. It doesn't have the EGR in it, but I'm going to take it around, put it on there, or just let it sit there. And now I know what I can take off. There it is, cut. The dang Chinese headers, being Chinese, did not fit right. The crossover pipe, which I don't have the other part of it right now, was not correct. It was probably too long by an inch, and it probably ended up like right about here on this pipe. So I'm gonna have my friend cut that down and weld it back. Here's my muffler. It's a single 3-inch in and then a dual 2.5-inch out. Perfect, I think, for this setup, but you'll have to cut off the flex pipe on these headers in order to fit it. So I had to flip my throttle right side up again, and the reason why I'm running my fuel over the blower is because the exhaust pipe gets really, really close to both of these rubber hoses. One for the fuel and one for the, this is the PCV. So they didn't want them melting these hoses. Definitely don't want to melt the fuel hose. You don't really want to warm up the fuel either. So this is a MAP sensor, manifold air pressure. I believe it's a 2-bar, and you want a 2-bar. The other option is a 1-bar. It looks exactly the same as this. You don't want that. Most people run 98 PCMs, and this is the one that you need. Now, later models actually have 2 MAP sensors in it. They look like this. The computer uses the 2 different ones. They actually do the same exact thing. I don't know why it has 2, but earlier tunes don't need 2 of them. So you can take that off and just throw it away. So instead of spending $120 for a stupid puller, you can rent one for free from an auto parts store and get your pulley off with. See, mine's already pulled off, but you need some sort of split ring like this. This ring actually unscrews. A friend made this actually for the same application, and I'm just borrowing it from him. So put this behind the pulley. Obviously take it apart to get it behind the pulley. And then you put the jaws around this, and so it distributes the weight evenly around the pulley as you pull it off. Otherwise, see there, that is the small screw as a guide pin and the brass nut to mate with the surface of the shaft as I pull the pulley out. To get the new hub on, I wrap a bag of ice water around the shaft, and then I heat up this in the toaster oven, not a microwave, toaster oven, to like 400 or 500 degrees, as hot as it'll go. and then with a thick leather glove or something on, I grab this and I position it on, and then I put the screw that fits the threads for this and a big washer on it, and I impact it down while I hold this very firmly so that the shaft doesn't just rotate, and the impacting action will actually slowly press that onto the shaft. I wouldn't use a hammer because a hammer could damage your blower by hammering onto the end of the shaft like that. If you just use the jaws, you will do that. So don't do that. It doesn't come off a lick. I actually use an impact to get these off. Sometimes I use like a nut to put in the center and like a bolt to put down the shaft. You're gonna want to take on the Gen 5, there was a plastic plug in the shaft. I took that out and put a small screw in there that was too small for those threads, so it acts like a guide pin to center the puller. So here you can see my fuel pressure regulator. So here you can see where my fuel line will enter, and I mounted these fuel rails by making angle iron brackets there and there. Hard to see that one. I'm going to do a 45-degree fitting on this side, and it's going to go over the blower and back to this 45-degree on this side, and then this is the return side. There's my angle iron there, and there, and into my fuel pressure regulator, and then that fuel will come out and go to the return. I would much prefer a return style system to a returnless, even though it has more piping, because there can be problems with returnless style. When fuel is consumed, it creates a vacuum, it pulls fuel, and that can be less efficient for the injectors to pull fuel than it is for them to just have fuel provided in the rails at all times by being returned to the tank. There's some, I don't know what it's called, cavitation or something maybe that happens within the fuel rail on some returnless styles. Also, with the return style, you don't need to run as high a fuel pressure because it's easier to replace the fuel once it's been consumed. I have right now over 500 subscribers, and if I get up to 1,000, then I get monetized again. And from what I hear, it's 20 to 30 bucks a month. Good amount of money I can put towards the car. Might help me get motivated to keep making videos like this. So please hit that subscribe button. That really helps me out a lot. Thanks. And also, I'm willing to answer any questions you've got. Throw it at me in the comments or on Facebook or anything. Any way you can figure out how to reach me.